She's survived by her husband, President George H.W. Bush. They were married 73 years. And we are also told, obviously, everybody's heartbroken, but is being supported by this family and appreciates all of your well wishes in all of this. One of her sons, President George W. Bush, put out a statement tonight that reads, quote, "My dear mother has passed on at age of 92. Laura, Barbara, Jenna, and I are sad, but our souls are settled because we know hers was. Barbara Bush was a fabulous first lady and a woman unlike any other who brought levity, love, and literacy to millions. To us, she was so much more. Mom kept us on our toes, kept us laughing until the end. I'm a lucky man that Barbara Bush was my mother, and our family will miss her dearly, and we thank you all for your prayers and your good wishes." Now, tonight, the White House says that President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania joined the nation in celebrating this incredible life of an incredible First Lady. And our thoughts, our prayers, our condolences are with the entire Bush family. And many thanks for her many years of service to this country. Former First Lady Barbara Bush died today at the age of 92. All right, that's all the time we have left. We'll always be fair and balanced. Laura Ingraham is standing by in Washington tonight. All right, the heat goes back to you starting tomorrow.
I don't need any more heat. Hot enough, Sean. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Great show tonight, as always. And thanks, Sean. We're going to continue the conversation about the life of Barbara Bush and a lot more. Good evening from Washington. I'm Laura Ingraham, and this is the Ingraham Angle. And we begin this evening, as I said, with continuing coverage of the passing of First Lady Barbara Bush. The former First Lady died today at her home in Houston, as Sean said, at age 92. She was one of only 2 women in U.S. history to be both the mother and the wife of a U.S. president. But Barbara Bush was special in so many other ways. She was down to earth and also dignified. She was elegant, and she was admired and she was loved by Americans and politicians on both sides of the aisle, which doesn't seem possible today. Tributes are pouring in from family, friends, and others whose lives she touched. Joining us tonight for a look at the legacy of this remarkably gracious and kind woman are Bret Baier, Newt Gingrich, Karl Rove, and Brit Hume. It is great to see all of you tonight on this sad night, but I want to start with you, Karl Rove. What a life, what a lady. I mean, the tributes from everybody from Bill Clinton to foreign leaders, Democrats, liberals, conservatives, and with today's politics, it's kind of refreshing all over again to hear how many people loved her so much.
Yeah, a rather formidable presence, a woman of great character, of enormous values. There's going to be a big welcoming party, I suspect, for her, but I'm sure the authorities in heaven are making certain that everybody is on their best behavior, because Mrs. Bush had an expectation that you were capable of doing good things, and she would let you know if she felt you were you could do a little bit more to achieve what she thought was possible from you. She was, I met her when I was 22, and I have a smile that could light up a room, a warmth, a respect for everyone, fun to be around, brash, smart, is really smart, and capable of. Many a time I saw her like needle pointing, and you'd think that she was focused on the needle point, and then she'd inject into that conversation. You knew she'd been paying attention to every single word that you had been saying. I was supposed to have lunch with them 2 weeks ago today, and she went into the hospital on Monday, and she was a remarkable presence. And think about it: advisor to a president, her husband, whom she loved dearly, met him when she was 16, fell in love with him, married together for nearly 76 years, married for 73. I mean, really,
remarkable.
And really remarkable.
Newt Gingrich.
Hard to match up that.
Newt Gingrich, one of the great things about her, and there's so many great things about her, is her. She didn't have a lot of pretense. Like when she was commenting first about becoming the vice president's wife, she said, "A lot of fat, white-haired ladies who are wrinkled are tickled pink about my ascending to this role." She was just so fun. She didn't dye her hair. She didn't get a facelift. She's like, "I am who I am." That is so refreshing today. Again, I use the word refreshing, but it's just, I love it.
Well, I think at one point she described herself as the nation's grandmother. And I think that sort of captured it. And she had, I think at that point she had like 25-point higher approval rating than her husband. And Cliff and I were talking earlier tonight about what a remarkable couple. And also, though, I think Carl caught it right. She was ferocious. I mean, she was pleasant, she was nice, she was smart. But in terms of both her husband and her sons, but in terms of both Jeb's campaign, George W.'s campaign, there's no question she was prepared to go all out, and she was prepared to reach out to every friend she had, and she wanted the family to do well, and it did. It's a remarkable American family.
Brett.
Well, first of all, that love affair was really a lot of who she was. Love affair with H.W. Bush, 41, and with her family. Today, we're told that H.W. held her hand all day long next to her, and that she was surrounded by family, and he was right next to her when she left the earth. So I think you're seeing this family rally around each other. It was a big part of their life to be together. She said that was the most important thing in her life, and she gave a lot of commencement addresses, and one of them in Wesley College said, "At the end of your life, you will never regret not having passed one more test, not winning one more verdict, or not closing one more deal. You will regret time not spent with a husband, a child, a friend, or a parent."
No, that's for sure. We all think that in our lives. It goes by really fast. Those are the moments. We actually have another moment from that same address at Wellesley College. Britt Hume, I want you to react to this. Let's watch.
I want to offer a new legend. The winner of the hoop race will be the first to realize her dream, not society's dreams, her own personal dream. Who knows? Somewhere out in this audience may even be someone who will one day follow in my footsteps and preside over the White House as the president's spouse, and I wish him well.
And the crowd, we cut the crowd there, but the crowd, Britt, went crazy.
Yeah,
they ended up loving it. There was controversy, though, about her appearing, but compared to what it's like today, that was 1990, and a Republican goes to a college today, it's a different reception, but they ended up loving her there.
They did, but she was someone that people, I think, it wasn't that she was so cuddly, because she really wasn't cuddly. She was warm and she was friendly and she was outgoing, but she had standards, and you knew it when you were around her. I mean, I always felt that I better be on my best behavior around her, and she used to say, apropos of her devotion to family, she used to say when she was First Lady, she used to say, "What happens at your house is more important than what happens in the White House." Not a view often expressed, but one that at the time I think was taken well and was very much like her. She was very focused on family, her family in particular, but family values in particular, which may have fallen out of favor to some extent, but they never did with her.
And at one point she said, "I'm worried about parents who don't parent." Just simple sayings that kind of stay with you. And Carl, there was another moment where she was talking about among the professional things that she did, or things as First Lady, was her literacy initiative that really took hold during George W.'s term. Let's watch.
I decided that I wanted to do something that would help George, that would help the most Americans possible without costing the government huge amounts of money.
You can go to a hospital and read to children.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Sure, absolutely.
But I don't think many people thank me for the literacy.
And she was a little bit annoyed by that, which you don't blame her, because it's in every state. She raised tens of millions of dollars, gets famous authors like Newt Gingrich and Bret Baier and to go and speak. And she said, "I'm never going to pay you. You're doing it for free." And everyone said, "You bet I'm going to do it for free, Mrs. Bush. No problem." I love the literacy. I think she does not get enough credit for that. So important. And it's family literacy that she said holds families together. Faith, family, and literacy, reading together.
Absolutely right. This was a great passion for her, and the focus was, it is your responsibility as a parent or as a friend or a family member to help someone else learn to love to read, and to do so at an early age. And it's remarkable to even today, the effort goes on in a huge fashion. I want to talk, though, quickly about one other thing. You may remember that moment when she was the First Lady of the United States, where she went to the hospital in Washington and held an AIDS baby. This was at a time when a lot of people thought that AIDS could be communicated by simply touching an individual. And so a lot of these AIDS babies were lacking human contact. And she went and did that. And it's because she wanted to set an example, and she wanted to make it clear that this is one of the things, this woman, she may have worn fake pearls, and she may have had gray hair, but she had a respect for every single human being in which she came in contact with, and expected other people to have that same kind of mutual respect for every one of God's creatures and every one of God's people. And I thought it was a powerful moment when she did that, and emblematic of this great and noble woman who served our country. She was very patriotic. She loved America deeply, and cherished the great values that we have and our freedoms, and wanted others to enjoy and respect them as well.
And Newt, she was part of the greatest generation. I mean, she and George H.W.
The whole
Bush.
story of their romance, of really deciding to get married, but then wait, him going off to war. He the youngest naval pilot in World War II, shot down, luckily saved by an American submarine. There's a lot to their whole lifetime. Then moving to Texas, which back then for them was a pretty radical move, running for Congress, serving as head of the CIA. I mean, everywhere he went, she went.
Let me just say
Their
one
house
thing
in
about
Midland,
the-
Texas.
Go ahead.
Their house in Midland, Texas, if you've ever been there, is a very modest and very, I mean, it's paper-thin walls. And at one point, they were living next door to the local prostitute with whom they shared a bathroom. I mean, this was the Wild West frontier in the late 40s and early 50s.
You know, the
and
Secret
that
Service.
elegant woman from,
Secret Service put out a statement today.
Yeah.
And they don't usually do that, but the people who worked for the Bushes loved the Bushes. Her Secret Service name was Tranquility, her code name. And she had a certain touch. As Britt said, she could be fiery and sharp-witted. She really loved privacy. And when she left, she was hurt in '92 when Bush lost. She wanted to get back to private life. She told the story that she was in the store and some lady came up to her and said, "Wait, aren't you Barbara Bush?" And she said, "Oh, no, she's much older than me." And you know, she loved the private life.
Let's end with Britt Hume. Britt, there was a moment during the 2016 campaign that, I mean, we were just howling at earlier with my producers because Mrs. Bush was talking about what the country needs at this point. Let's watch.
You think there's room for another Bush in the White House?
I think this is a great American country, great country. And if we can't find more than 2 or 3 families to run for high office, that's silly.
It's like we got Jeb running, and Jeb's like, "Wait, Mom, what's going on here?" But she was just hilarious.
Well, she was later to change her view of that.
Yeah, I know.
As you may recall, I think Laura, in all this, we should have a particular thought for George H.W. Bush tonight. When I met him and covered his campaign back in 1980, they had been married already for 35 years. And this marriage has gone on for, what, 72, 73 years. Whenever they were together, as others have noted, but in recent years in particular, they were always holding hands. It was one of the great marriages of our time. And here he is, as late as he is in his life, with all the maladies that he's suffered, having to endure this loss. We've all lost something tonight, but he most of all. God bless him.
Yeah, absolutely. A great way to end it. And broken hearts across this country tonight. Thank you all so much for all your reflections. And tonight's Angle is up next on the left's war on the rule of law. And then Newt will rejoin us for a look at the pushback in California against the sanctuary state madness and Governor Jerry Brown, who was in Washington today. Don't go away.
With Expedia, you can book a flight, hotel, car, and activity all in one place. Everything you need to go. Expedia.
Shave butter by Dollar Shave Club. It's going to change your life. Well, the shave part of your life. Try shave butter and a razor at dollarshaveclub.com.
I used to love going out early in the morning.
Why? Since the defendant's conduct posed a significant risk of violence. Well, Neil Gorsuch, of course, the newest justice of the court, applied a textualist approach in deciding to join the liberal justices in the majority. Justices Roberts, Thomas, Alito, and Kennedy dissented on grounds that the statute's language was plenty clear. But look, setting aside which theory of statutory interpretation is most faithful to the Constitution, do any of you wonder why this is an issue at all? I mean, look, anyone here illegally, except the DACA people, is potentially a deportable alien under current law. In other words, if you don't have permission to be here, go home. Well, maybe the government can't deport 12 million people. We hear that all the time. But certainly they could deport a lot if they wanted to. But Democrats, however, are not interested in enforcing the law. Instead, they're interested in growing their voter rolls. And the Democrats, they don't even recognize victims of illegal alien crime. Now, remember, according to reports, Jamil Shaw's father said he never received a call from President Obama after he lost his son. But remember, he found time, President Obama, to call that other victim, Sandra Fluke. But I digress. Governor Jerry Mr. Sanctuary Brown was in Washington today, and he was asked about the cities in California rejecting his sanctuary policies. Well, remember, the sanctuary laws forbid state and local police agencies from even notifying the federal government when incarcerated illegals are about to be released onto the streets.
The leaders of these local communities, from mayors to sheriffs, are saying that your law favors the rights of criminal illegal aliens over the rights and the safety of those communities. Your response?
Absolutely false. And I'd like to see a scintilla of evidence that would support such an outlandish Fox proposition.
Well, hold on. That's not a Fox proposition.
I think Fox News exploits this issue. We have criminals that do horrible things all the time. Which ones may be documented, which ones are, I'll have guys to look at that. But we have a very strong law enforcement community in the state. And I think to scapegoat the immigrants by these very biased stories, I don't think. Look, I
with all due respect, you have more than a dozen communities.
With all due respect, I want to protect people. And for you to say that we don't care about victims is really a calumny.
Well, with all due respect, to use his language, some of your own county officials are saying your policies don't seem to care about victims past or future. And just yesterday, Los Alamitos voted 4-1 to align themselves with the Trump administration in opposing Brown's sanctuary state policies. And today, San Diego County voted to do the same. Wow. So how long can Jerry Brown allow this to go on? He's tearing his state apart, and he's endangering its citizens. And now Brown is even waffling on his response to the president's call to send National Guard troops to protect the border. Well, Governor Moonbeam says he's willing to send 400 troops so long as they have nothing to do with immigration enforcement. What are they going to do? Build schools? Build walls? What the heck are they supposed to do? Well, regardless of the threat they might present to the citizens of California, illegals, they're always welcome, so long as liberals are in charge there. Now, this is California Democratic Congressman Brad Sherman, who was with me on The Angle a few weeks ago.
Look, you have more crime in California than Wyoming because you have more people in California than Wyoming.
Are we to tell the American people tonight that because the California wants to be sanctuary, fugitive state, whatever you want to call it, we have to sacrifice a certain number of Americans for this utopian idea that borders are pointless?
The fact is, if you want less crime, move to the Cayman Islands. They got so few people here. There you can go a whole week without a violent crime.
Is that your argument? So that's their argument? If you want to be safe from illegals, move to the Cayman Islands? My friends, this is madness. As I often say, if enforcing our immigration laws spares one American from death or rape or theft or abuse, it's worth it, even in California. And that's The Angle. Joining us now for a reaction is Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House and the creator of the new Defending America course, which seems entirely appropriate for the subject matter at hand. Newt Gingrich, your reaction to this? I mean, that line from Sherman, but if you want to be safer, move to the Cayman Islands. I mean, that's basically all they have left is invective, identity politics, or that kind of nonsense.
I was talking with Kevin McCarthy today, the Republican Majority Leader, who's from Bakersfield. And he made the comment, because we were talking about John Cox's candidacy for governor, and McCarthy said, if you combine sanctuary cities with the gasoline tax increase, you suddenly have in California the kind of ferment that they had with Prop 13 that led to Reagan. And that's what you're seeing happen. I mean, people in normal, everyday cities are rebelling. Sheriffs are saying they're not going to obey the state law. Entire counties are opting out. And I think it's a good debate because let's just take MS-13, which is an El Salvadorian gang spread all across America, extraordinarily violent. You look in Fairfax County, for example, Virginia, the number of additional murders, rapes, attacks. If the Democrats want to be the party that protects the right of MS-13 to stay in America and kill people, I think that's a great fall campaign issue.
Now, you're a great storyteller. All your books, the novels that you've written, the history courses online and others that you've taught. Republicans sometimes aren't great storytellers, Newt. And I've talked to friends about this. Republicans are always in numbers, charts, percentages, GDP. But the story of Kate Steinle, Jamil Shaw, Donald Trump understood that the stories of real people are what's going to cut through the clutter.
Right, but it's a combination of here is a story and here is the larger meaning. And they bring the two of them together. That's where Republicans very often, sometimes they're up here with an interesting larger meaning, but no hook, no ability to make it real. And that's why, for example, I cite MS-13, because it's so demonstrably a violent gang, and there's no justification for tolerating any MS-13 member being in the United States.
Let's talk about Kevin McCarthy for a moment. He looks like he has the inside shot to be the next Speaker of the House. He's had kind of a rocky relationship over the years with conservatives. I mean, he's never come on this show. We've invited him on many times. I really look forward to talking to him. Doesn't really go on conservative talk radio. Neither did John Boehner. Neither did Jeff Flake. There's kind of a pattern there. But what about him? He's developed a pretty good relationship with President Trump.
Well, I think McCarthy is very dedicated to trying to enact the president's program. I think that he understands, he put a lot of his own resources into getting the ballot initiative on repealing the gas tax on the ballot in California, which will make it a big issue in November. I think that McCarthy is one of those guys who, in a sense, is a little bit risk avoiding. I mean, I know it's a shock to you, but coming on a show like this, if you're a senior leader, there's a certain risk that you're going to.
Well, Newt, I mean, you didn't shy away when you were Speaker of the House. You didn't shy away from television. You did it because you could actually answer a question. I mean, if you can't withstand questions on the Ingraham Angle, then what are you going to do when you go on these liberal shows where they're just going to smash you over the head every time? I mean, I don't get that. I mean, you have to be able to talk to the conservative audience about your policies. And Trump would go everywhere and anywhere. So would Reagan.
My guess is that you're going to see McCarthy on talk radio.
Yeah. Well, he needs us now. Where will he be in the morning?
Well, because he's
the morning after.
Because he's in a new role. I think the morning after he's going to be helping Donald Trump pass his agenda.
I want to talk about a couple of other things. The Stormy Daniels obsession by the American media. I mean, even Meghan McCain, who sometimes is a little, she's very moderate, but she's an interesting person. She's on The View today, and she's even fed up. Let's watch.
It seems like a publicity stunt on some level. I mean, I think yesterday, because you didn't have anything to do with the case, it seemed a little like you were just trying to get attention, which I understand that you're being sued by our president, but it does seem like you're benefiting a lot. I mean, you've gone on your Make America Horny Again tour. I'm sure you're making a lot of money, no disrespect. No. I hadn't heard your name until all of this had happened, and now you are literally live on The View giving an entire interview with us. So it has been beneficial for your career.
Well, of course it is. Look, in the age of the Kardashians, Daniels just represents one of the weirder subsets. And that's what we've become as a country. Moynihan, the former senator, wrote a brilliant essay called Defining Deviancy Down.
Yeah.
And that's what we've done. We've gotten to a point where the elite media, I mean, if she was trying to talk about somebody on the left, the elite media wouldn't cover her at all. But the elite media has proven, as they are with Comey this week, that if you're willing to be anti-Trump, they will give you all the time they possibly can.
Or if you're a Republican who's anti-Trump, same thing.
That's right.
You'll get a column in the New York Times. You'll get a contributorship
on former Republicans.
Yeah,
they just don't know it yet.
They're on the island of misfit,
And they're gradually drifting away. I mean, they'll presently be Democrats or something.
Yeah, they'll be Democrats. Big news that broke tonight, Newt. And I want to get some of your take on this issue. Big bombshell news. Fox News now confirming that CIA Director and Secretary of State nominee Mike Pompeo made a top-secret trip to North Korea over the Easter weekend, and he met with dictator Kim Jong-un. Purpose of the appearance was to prepare for direct talks between Trump and Kim in a possible upcoming meeting. Your reaction to this news? This is wild.
Well, I mean, let's start with objective reality. Pompeo graduated first at West Point. He graduated first at Harvard Law School. He is an extraordinarily smart guy.
Underachiever.
The president has said flatly, if he can find a way to talk and not fight a war, he wants to see if they can get to a deal. I think that they have shaken the dictatorship so badly, they may get to a deal. That would be a historic achievement.
No, they were calling the president a warmonger, that he was going to start World War III. On all the other networks, just a couple of months ago, he was bringing us to the brink of nuclear war. They were going to invoke the constitutional amendment where they would go in and they would remove him from office because we're going to go to war. I mean, this was nonstop on television. Now we could have this incredible break. This is amazing.
And this is my prediction. If they reach an agreement and Kim Jong-un gives up all of his nuclear weapons, the first report in the elite media will be, in an act of statesmanship, Kim Jong-un overcame his resistance to Donald Trump and decided he would go ahead and take the risk for peace anyway.
It would be spun as an anti-Trump.
It'll somehow be an anti-Trump moment.
There's one other thing that I'm dying to talk to you about of many. But what Comey has been saying at his book tour, there's so many things we could get into, but specifically, let's talk about what he said today about Scooter Libby. I think we have it.
It's an attack on the rule of law. There's a reason President George W. Bush, for whom Scooter Libby worked, refused to pardon him after looking at all the facts in the case. It was an overwhelming case. There's no reason that's consistent with justice to pardon him. And so it's an attack on the rule of law, in my view.
Look, I've spent a lot of time looking at this case. I'm a friend of Scooter Libby's. I lived through that entire situation. There's nothing more despicably dishonest that Comey has said than what he said just then. Comey appointed his close friend, Patrick Fitzgerald, to be an independent investigator at a time when the entire case was a phony case. The CIA said that Valerie Plame, the whole case was about, was she outed and who outed her? The CIA said she wasn't a covered person. The CIA counsel has said this did no material damage to the CIA. They knew who had done it. The person who did it was, in fact, Colin Powell's deputy at the State Department. Patrick Fitzgerald told him to keep his mouth shut. He then locked up a New York Times reporter for 85 days to get her to testify. Scooter finally, out of concern for her, gave her permission to testify because she said, I have privilege here, I'm not going to do it. She then testified after she got out of jail and after the case was over. She went back, she wrote a book and said, I realized later that that prosecutor gave me false information so that I gave false testimony.
Should have been disbarred.
And he should have been disbarred, and frankly, Comey should have been disbarred. Comey presided over what was very clear. They were trying to get Dick Cheney. And Comey in his book finally told you the reason. Comey went in the first time he saw Cheney. They're in the cabinet room. They're sitting next to each other. Comey turns to be friendly. Cheney says, I know who you are, and looks straight ahead and says nothing till Bush comes in. Comey is such a petty person that he sought to destroy Cheney. Scooter wouldn't turn over and destroy Cheney, so they decided to destroy Scooter. I think what he said today is the most despicable language and the biggest falsehood, and everybody ought to understand Scooter Libby is the threat of the future. If they can do this to Scooter Libby, if they can do this to Donald Trump, they can do it to every American, and that's why I'll just close with this. If you read the original statement by Rosenstein, what he sent to the president, which I'm actually publishing tomorrow, and you read what the Inspector General said about McCabe, you have to conclude, these are both internal reports, you have to conclude we were in enormous danger with the top two people in the FBI, both dishonest people, totally untrustworthy, and totally self-serving.
A partisan investigation. I don't care if Jim Comey was nominally a Republican. This investigation from the beginning had an anti-Trump animus. First, they wanted an insurance policy with Strzok and Page. Then he got elected, and then they were like in freak-out mode. And then they had to go right with a Steele dossier right back to the FISA court and keep it going. Even after that, Carter Page talked to them. He went up and talked to he was willing to talk to anybody. He was like, talk to the test pattern on TV. God bless them. But Carter Page will talk to anybody. And they kept that thing going.
Because I think between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock on election night, liberals in America went through a psychotic trauma of such scale. Because at 8 o'clock, I'm serious. I mean, as a historian.
They're still suffering from it.
They are. Not, that's why I said it's psychotic. At 8 o'clock, they knew Hillary Clinton was going to be the first woman president. At 10 o'clock, this horrifying moment had occurred. And people like Comey, but remember, Comey's wife and his daughter are both at the parade. They're at the march the day after the inaugural.
I love that line when he says, and she pops into the interview. She just like pops into the interview with Stephanopoulos. Like, oh, it was so great to be with them. And they all voted for Hillary, and they
of
were
course,
all
McCabe's
devastated.
wife was a Democratic candidate who got $700,000 from the Clinton machine. But of course, none of this would mean they're in any way biased.
Well, Jim Comey.
And then, by the way, the judge who's currently looking at the case in New York happens to be Kimball Wood, who was Bill Clinton's nominee to be Attorney General. But again, I'm sure she's going to be totally neutral.
The attorney.
You can't keep a straight face.
I can't, because it is like, if you were writing this as one of your scary, like, EMP novels, like everything's going to blow up.
You couldn't do all
No,
this
you
in
would
one
write
novel.
this, Newt, and I would say, look, you've really taken your novels too far now.
That's right.
I mean, this is really out of control, Gingrich. You got to, like, cuckoo for Cocoa Puff stuff. Newt Gingrich, thank you so much for joining us on Barbara Bush and everything else.
Hot flashes, moodiness, my weight. It's like the invasion of the body snatchers, except it's my body. Who do I have to know to get it back?
Only Estroven has a line of formulas to help safely stop hot flashes and more. Safe, trusted Estroven.
Sandals. More quality inclusions than any other resorts on the planet. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. Discuss the wisdom of this with the former Trump campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, here in the studio, and civil rights attorney Leo Terrell in Los Angeles. All right, Leo. Look, I remember being 16 just a few years ago, but I remember being 16. It was fun. You know, we were playing high school sports and, you know, goofing around on the weekends, going to the go-kart tracks. They still do that anymore, Corey?
I think so.
Yeah, maybe once in a while. But explain why that is the way to go when in most states you can't get a tattoo at age 16.
Well, this is too easy. Age is a number. 16 and 17-year-olds can get married in many states. They get a job. They can drive their car. I don't see where age is a number. What I have been impressed with, I think this whole nation has been mesmerized by those kids at that school in Parkland. Those kids were articulate, smart, and to make an assumption, Laura, you're a lawyer, to make an assumption that age is somehow a measurement of competency and maturity,
16,
I
Leo?
would beg to differ.
Why 16?
Why not?
Why not 14?
Argue against me on this. You can drive at 16.
Cortex.
You can get
Prefrontal
married
cortex.
at 16.
Do you know what that is, Leo?
Oh my goodness.
Do you know what it is?
Explain it to me, because no, you can
okay,
explain
well,
it to
it's
me.
not me. I'm not a scientist, but there are those who are. In the prefrontal cortex of the teenage brain, it's science. Liberals are all about science. It's not about emotion, it's science. Prefrontal cortex of the teenage brain is not developed yet. It's not in balance with the emotional brain, the limbic brain. So wait, just hold on, Leo. Take a breath. Take a breath. Well, it's okay. So by 25, we're all developed. Our teenage brain is now in sync with our emotional brain. Now, this is science. This is not punditry. So isn't it better to allow the brain to develop just a little? You know, the rational part of the teen brain is fully developed and won't until the age of 25. Adults think with the prefrontal cortex, the brain's rational part. Teens process information with the amygdala, and this is the emotional part. I didn't know how to say that.
So Laura Ingraham is going to play the scientific card on me on this game. Come on,
the liberals.
Laura.
Okay, Leo. Leo, you're out of ideas. Okay, Corey.
This
is what, Laura. Here's what it comes down to.
This is hilarious. If you cite science, they also criticize
you can't cite science. No facts. We don't want facts, right? This is like Comey. No facts. Facts don't matter. We'll just do it based on public opinion polling. But here's what it comes down to. Half the time in Florida, they're arguing you can't buy a weapon at 18 years old. We're going to raise the minimum age to buy a handgun or an assault rifle at 21 years old. But in the Washington, D.C., where you can't own a gun, we're going to lower the age for people to vote, even though they don't have the ability to do it. We can't own a gun. You can't drive in Washington, D.C. at 16 years old. You still have to show up at school, I think, every day. You can't excuse yourself because you're not a legal adult. But we're going to give you the biggest and most important right that our country has, which is to make a rational decision when it comes to voting at 16 years old. This is just liberal propaganda.
But it's also because they want this to catch
this
on
is-
and sweep the nation, correct?
Of course, because
this is all
the
about.
Democrats are losing voters every day. When you can't import illegal immigrants to vote in your elections, that's what happens. Next thing you know, you're going to tell me we're actually going to have a voter ID law in every state that requires people to present an identification to say I'm a legal U.S. citizen before I vote in this important thing.
Leo.
Corey, that's a red hair. I've been on this show for 3 minutes. No one argued against me regarding 16-year-olds being allowed to marry. And if you're going to make the argument, the scientific argument, Laura,
they can't
why are we
drink
allowing
and they
18
don't go to
marry?
war at 16.
Why-
I mean,
Oh,
for
I see.
every little
I see.
fact you throw, they don't go to war at 16 and they don't
Okay.
drink. Should we change the relevant ages for those two important rights as well? Yes.
You can't drive at night
let me
at
pull
16
out
years
another,
old.
let me pull out a favorite conservative cause. Local decision making by local officials, and now big brother government, Corey and Laura, is going to tell the District of Columbia they cannot make a decision.
Leo, we're
I
talking
cannot
about
believe
the
it. Role reversal.
Yeah, Leo, we're actually. I'm interested in the federal elections here. I mean, D.C. is
Yes.
going to do what D.C. does. That's cool. But the federal elections, obviously governed by the U.S. Constitution. We all understand that. And the framers had a pretty good sense. Even by 16, kids were driving vehicles, or they were driving tractors and doing all sorts of stuff at age 16, even going to war. But now we have a different view of it. And I guess we could change it. I mean, we could change it to 14, 13, 12, 10. I mean, why?
No.
Vote in utero.
But Leo, then we should change the rules that says at 16 years old, if you can vote, you can go to the military, you can own a weapon, and you can buy alcohol if you want. You might as well just do it all at once. Let's just set a standard stage. Why not?
Why shouldn't you be able to have a
I did
gun?
my homework before I came on the show. Hey, listen, no, excuse me. You can have at 16 or younger, you can have a rifle, you can possess a long gun, you cannot buy a handgun, but you can't have a rifle in this great country.
You can vote.
Why not?
We're playing devil's advocate here because if you can vote, which is a sacred right, then why are the other rights not as honored and as respected for that age group? I mean, if you have the wherewithal, the mental acuity, the judgment, in order to make that it's a complicated decision for whom you want to vote. Primaries and then national elections, or you think it's just a throwaway? It's just a goof to vote? I don't think so.
I can't believe you. I mean, come on, conservative. 50 states, 50 different laboratories, all that stuff we learn in government. Let the local government make a decision. They're not, I mean, why are you arguing against local decision making?
But you guys weren't for that when it came to gay marriage. You wanted a national right to gay marriage, right? Liberals. I'm talking about liberals. I mean, you're picking your poison here. You're picking your issue. So for states wanted to do that for abortion and gay rights, and you're like, no way, that's got to be a federal right. Okay, it's federally established now. So now we have a Democrat quandary. They're worried. I'm telling you, they're worried Trump's going to get reelected. They're worried that they're out of ideas. So now they're like, oh my gosh, we got to get more voters. We got to get more voters. Let's bring the kids in.
The Democrats continue to lose their base, right? Their base continues to shrink. It's a bipolar, bi-coastal base, which is only on the East Coast and the West Coast. And so they need to do anything they can to bring new people into the system. We want voter participation as high as humanly possible. Of course we do. But 16-year-olds,
I got a news flash. I got a news flash for both of you. In the last Republican victories, guess who had more popular vote? The losing Democrat. They're not hurting for voters in 2000 and 2016.
Well, we have a thing called the Electoral College.
Look, it's like saying to Tom Brady, Tom, you threw for 10,000 yards in the game, but you didn't put any points on the board. It doesn't matter who has the most votes. It's how you win the Electoral College. You lay out the rules.
I don't dispute
we play
that,
by them.
I don't dispute that, but Laura and you guys are shuffling the board. We're talking about losing votes. They got plenty of Democratic voters, but you're taking away the right of local government to make a decision.
We have Ohio and Wisconsin.
No problem with that.
And we have other states. It's not just California, and it's not just New York, not just New England. We have 50 states. And I like that.
This is
like
amazing.
All states
Role
to have,
reversal.
I like all states to have a say in who becomes president. All I'm saying is if it's 16, why not 15? And if it's 15, why not 14? I just, do you remember what you were doing with 16? What was your, give me a fun memory from 16, Corey.
I don't think I can say those things on television.
Oh, come on, Leo, do you have a fun memory from 16? Give me something fun. Take it away from politics. Just be fun for a moment.
Okay, I was playing sports and I ran for president in my high school and I won. I was mature enough and I liked politics, just like you, Laura. Just like, oh, come on.
Look,
Come
you
on.
know what I was doing? I was chasing girls and playing high school basketball and having a great time. And
oh my God!
I can't was I able to make
I
decisions?
can throw every argument. I'm throwing every logical, political argument I can win.
Topic. At this point, I'm not sure 54-year-olds should be able to vote for president. I'm just kidding.
It may have to be an IQ test for some of these people.
I mean, okay, gentlemen, I'm going to leave it there. We love the kids. Don't get me wrong. And stay right there. Reporter Cheryl Atkinson is here with her insight on how shady forces in the media try to control not only what you see and hear, but whom you should believe are defending the first series next.
Don't waste your time and money at the chain store. They got the best auto parts, brake parts, suspension parts, and dealer parts too. The website's so easy to use. The lowest prices and fast delivery too. All the parts your car will ever need. All the savvy folks are buying parts at rockauto.com. All the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
As a control enthusiast, I'm all business when I
measure, and the author of the book, The Smear, How Shady Political Operatives Control What You See, What You Think, and How You Vote. And I'm so happy she's with us. I know you were the only person at CBS who was ever nice to me. I say this all the time. We worked at CBS together years ago, and Cheryl, we're delighted you're with us. So this Defending the First series we're doing, I think, is really important because a lot of people out there, they feel like they don't know how to fight back against this. They feel like they're under assault. All these fact checkers that are out there seem to only check facts in a negative way about Republicans. PolitiFact, I know you know them. They say the GOP lies 32% of the time is false. Only Democrats only lie 8% of the time. Are you finding that the fact checkers need a fact checker these days?
Yeah, I mean, I devoted a chapter to looking at this whole idea to shape and control our narratives in many different creative ways, to create what I call an artificial reality online and on the news so that people think things are true that may not be true, or that they're an outlier if they have certain feelings when they may not be. This may be media literacy efforts. It may be called fact-checking. It may be called anti-fake news.
What do you mean media literacy efforts?
Well, I've noticed that some of the people who started out with these fake news efforts, which were really an effort to control information more so than just get rid of fake news, they've now moved on, some of them, to, you know, we're going to start teaching in public schools and requiring this as part of the law to tell you who to believe. And it usually involves them saying, if you read it in the New York Times or the Washington Post, you can believe that. But if you've seen it somewhere else, you need to be wary, ignoring the fact that some of these formerly well-respected news publications have made some of the most egregious errors in the last couple of years. It's not that simple.
We were just doing this segment about whether 16-year-olds should vote. And I think Democrats want 16-year-olds to vote because they're fresh pickings. They're in the midst of the, you know, some would say the propaganda machine, especially in public schools, a lot of private schools. And so they're right in it. They're right in the thick of it, and it all skews Democrat. Let's talk about other fact checkers. There's now a fact checker at Univision, and the statistics at Univision are really bad for Republicans. I guess 95% of fact checks in January 2017 to April of this year, 95% went against Republicans, 0% Democrats, 2% Republicans and Democrats, 3% nonpartisan. That's the Media Research Center. Univision, obviously not a big fan of the president either.
Well, that's why I try to say that when you see these efforts of third parties to curate your information or tell you what to believe or try to curate who's right, that's something to be suspicious of in of itself. It doesn't mean you can't ever get valuable information from them, but that's usually an effort under a different name by an entity that wants to shape the narratives and shape your opinion.
Well, Amy Klobuchar, the senator from Minnesota, was on television this week and talking about how we need, you know, regulations on Facebook. And I know some conservatives are very frustrated with Facebook, but couldn't that backfire on conservatives and just independent thinkers for the government to say, we're going to regulate? How could that backfire?
Well, anytime the government or a third party gets into the mix, but perhaps especially the government, maybe you agree with them today, but will you agree with them tomorrow? That's why there was a whole philosophy, I guess, when the country was founded, to keep the government out of certain things. Do we really want to invite them and whatever their goals of the day may be to be the ones to decide what we can see and what we should believe and what we can't see?
The tone of the coverage about President Trump. Now, you're going to have this historic meeting with Kim Jong-un. I mean, if President Obama had arranged this, or Bill Clinton, Madeleine Albright, John Kerry, Hillary Clinton, this would be This is really all they're talking about. But it's like it's not even happening. It's really incredible. The tariffs, China's bowing on some of these issues that they'd never moved on before, that would be covered. But it's almost like these substantive issues where Donald Trump's really making a difference for the country. Those are inconvenient facts for this media. It's got to be Stormy Daniels. It's got to be Cohen. It's got to be Mueller 24/7. That skews the public's mind as well.
Well, there are two related factors I see behind that. One is the media, some Republicans and some Democrats are all against Donald Trump. He's facing extraordinary opposition. And there's other things at play, but they're all kind of related to that, why I think that happens.
Cheryl Atkinson, thank you so much for joining us, defending the first. And up next, another excellent reporter, Kimberly Strassel, has a simple but devastating example of how, yes, the lamestream media tries to keep the truth about the Russia probe from you. Stay with us.
What is love? Two hearts, one soul, a kiss, a hug, a laugh. It's passion. It's freedom. It's mystery. It's the journey and the destination. It's vows made and promises kept. It's a feeling, a need, no rules. All included, all unlimited. Feed your hunger, quench your thirst, live your dreams. Fulfilled, indulged, reborn. What is love? Love is all you need. Call 1-800-SANDALS.